Beach FM, locals talking to locals.
He's a very busy man. He's not at a council meeting today. He's just busy with clients as our ward councillor, Michael Scott, for the Waikanae Community Board. Good morning, Michael.
Hello, Nigel.
Yes, there was a fair bit of angst feeling in the meeting on Tuesday night. Not very many people there, but if you step outside in Waikanae at the moment, and boy, they're not too happy about the rating systems around the place. And the mayor saying, well, it's a Greater Wellington regional fault, and we can't do anything about it. Is that right?
Well, look, one of the problems we've got in the rating system is we do collect the rates for the Greater Wellington Regional Council, and because that has been a major increase, something we're going to submit on, we're then caught by that being and looking like part of our increase. Look, I think people are upset with the increase in rates, and there's precious little that Council can do about it. In terms of that average 4.7, 3.8% simply allows us to stand still. So our CapEx budget for next year is about 25 million. 17 million of that, Nigel's already spent. That's spent on renewals, it's spent on upgrades of current facilities to keep them current, it's spent on making sure that what currently works keeps working. And that's the problem in a growing town with infrastructure that's now 20, 30, 40 years old. We have to maintain it, and maintaining it isn't cheap. We try and do it smart. We recently had a revaluation of all of our underground assets and an inspection of as much as we could, and found that we were able to defer a whole lot of work because stuff was in far better condition than we thought. But the problem is, the more you defer, the more of a bow wave you carry forward, and this deferral arrangement has been the answer for councils in the past, and it simply means at some stage it catches up with us.
So in actual fact, the council's rate, proposed rate, because you haven't confirmed it yet, but 4.7. So we ignore the Greater Wellington regional rating. It would be 4.7 for Kapiti Coast District Council at this stage. And then, of course, on top of that, properties have got a big increase from their value, haven't they? And that's the problem.
That's right. So Waikanae Beach, in particular, they had a 42% increase in the value of their property. What that means is that they were substantially above the average rate and average value increase across the district. In the past, that's hit Otaki. In the past, that's hit the Waikanae garden area. In the past, it's hit areas of Raumati. This time round, Waikanae, with the expressway, with development down at the beach, with the number of people who are wanting to come here, has simply meant that land values and property values have risen enormously. A chunk of your rates, not all of them, but a chunk of them, are based on that arrangement. I see that we're getting heat in relation to fixed charges being converted. So we had a fixed charge which was simply for transport. We took that off and made that, rather than a regressive fixed charge that everybody paid, we put that onto properties and extended it to cover other parts of the transport activity. But that's not been well communicated, or at least not well understood from the documents that were sent out. I think partly also, Nigel, we're caught by our own publicity in terms of the fact we've tried to be incredibly open. We've tried to tell people what's going on. We've tried to quantify it in terms of not only a percentage figure, which is really unhelpful, but also in terms of a dollar figure. But I know that people who are facing rates increases that work out to be $20 and $30 a week are simply not happy.
No, especially on a fixed income. And this is the problem, I suppose. And so is there any way around this, Michael, or we've just got to accept this, apart from getting a submission into the Greater Wellington Regional Council and say, hey, pull your brakes on?
So one of the things Council's doing is a submission to the Greater Wellington Regional Council saying exactly that. This is just ridiculous. You're not delivering to us what we're paying for. You're delivering far more for far less, for example, to the Wairarapa. One of the things that local government New Zealand is doing is some work on the fact that rates is an incredibly blunt tool to do a job which is really unpopular. It might well be far better that people pay their share of local government via their income, which is, of course, everybody knows what their income is via inland revenue. Now, that's sure you as Chair of Operations and Finances. Firstly, we don't take one more dollar than we need to run the place. In other words, we know the amount that we need. We then divide that up amongst the properties that are around there. The other thing that we're doing is that we are, in fact, holding our spending. We haven't borrowed one more dollar in the last 3 months. Our current spending, current borrowing remains at $150 million. This council's pulled back the fat end of $50 million. We're going to be looking again at our CapEx spending. We simply are doing all we can to try and restrain cost, but already the submissions that I've seen for the long-term plan are full of people wanting more money spent in places.
Well, this is a problem, and I'm thinking of like Greater Wellington Regional Council up in Otaki, flood management, and let's face it, if we have a major flood and people's homes get flooded, the first ones to complain are those people, and rightly so, but they've got to spend money to protect them, haven't they?
We have at least $250 million on today's money to spend on flood protection, but that's not all of it. We subsidise people going for a swim, so a child's swim costs council about $20. We subsidise that $4 to every $1 that a family pays going through the door. So that there are some difficult choices. And every year we go out to the community to say, what services do you not want? What can we do less of? The answer that comes back loud and clear, Nigel, is not only we don't want you to do anything you don't want, but here's the list of new stuff we want you to do.
Of course, you're going to have people saying, well, we don't even use the swimming pool. Why should we be paying that money? Why don't you put the cost of using the swimming pool up to the users, the ones who go through the door?
And the problem would be that would see a child swim exceed $20, so nobody would use it. Same for libraries. We fund those 4 to 1. Look, on a recent Facebook evening, which Councillor Coots and I were at answering questions, one member of the public very sensibly said, well, look, if you're on a fixed income, could we reduce the amount that you pay? And we said, yes, we could. But the problem is, the amount we don't collect would have to be paid by someone else.
So therefore you have to put the rates up to cover that.
Exactly right. So it then becomes even more unfair to the very people who are crossed. I should be one of them. I look at what my rates in Waikanae are going up to, and I go, wow, I'm not getting anything more for that. And I think that's perhaps the big problem. I'm not actually receiving anything new. Certainly I can't see anything new. There might be some new pipes or some new lights or something like that. But the answer simply is we've got to spend $17 million next year just to stand still.
And that's the Waikanae Beach people are saying, hey, what extras are we going to get for the $1.3 million extra you're going to get from their area down there?
I thought that was a fascinating calculation, that because we're going to pay more, we should get a greater share of services. I thought that was really interesting. Does that mean that if you get a rates decrease, and there are people in our community who aren't saying anything because their rates have gone down, does that mean that they are going to get less services? Of course it doesn't. Unfortunately, this is a really blunt tool to do something really unpopular, and we're caught in the middle of it.
And just quickly, I know you've got a lot of meetings today. Just another meeting was the suggestion State Highway 1 road changes for Waikanae Town Centre. Now, NZTA and KCDC are intending to make major changes to our Waikanae Town Centre road between Te Moana and Nio Road intersections. Now, a small group of locals is responsible, the KCDC say to this?
So, look, I'm currently working through standing orders to see if we can have the decision that Council made on a 5-4 basis recently overturned. Certainly, if you look at social media, this is an incredibly unpopular decision. It went against what the business community and a fair chunk of Waikanae people wanted. The report was made a number of recommendations. Certainly a number of us don't accept those. My expectation is that this survey and the petition that's running will need to be presented to Council and show how unpopular these decisions are so that they can be reviewed. But the big thing is, if people are unhappy with it, get on that Survey Monkey or pick up a written copy and get it in to the organisers. Community Board put up $200 to cover the cost of the printed surveys, so we're really quite committed to trying to make sure that all the people who didn't know or have been disenfranchised get a chance to have a say, and Council clearly is going to have to review its current situation and have a bit of a look at the decision it made.
When was it intended to change the roading situation up there at Waikanae, Michael? I mean, how much time have they got to get this submission in and it to be looked at by the Council?
So look, there isn't any plans to change any time in the next 12 to 18 months.
Oh, right.
This is something that might be happening around election time next year.
Good time. I'll let you get back to your customers. I'd like to talk a lot more about the meeting on Tuesday night, which I really felt there's lots of things there that need to be discussed, but perhaps you might have a time next week just to pop on in and have a little extra chat to us.
Be very happy to do that, Nigel.
Thank you. Michael Scott.
106.3 Beach FM.